The wind howled across the fields that night, rattling the windows of Michael's farmhouse. Winter had settled in hard, wrapping the countryside in silence and frost. For Michael, nights like these usually meant long hours of loneliness once his son Ethan went to bed. He'd sit by the fireplace, sip on lukewarm coffee, and think about the life he had before tragedy struck. Michael was a man of few words. Ever since his wife, Anna, died in a car accident 3 years ago, he had grown quieter, his smile rarer. His days revolved around work, his evenings around Ethan, and his nights around memories. He had promised his late wife that he would raise their boy to be strong and kind, even if it meant losing himself in the process. That night, however, his routine was broken. A faint noise outside disturbed the stillness. At first, he thought it was the wind knocking something loose. But the sound came again, different, softer. Almost like a whimper. Grabbing his flashlight and coat, Michael stepped into the bitter cold. Snow crunched beneath his boots as he made his way to the old shed behind his house. The structure had been unused for years, more a resting place for forgotten tools than anything else. When he pushed open the creaky door, his beam of light revealed something he could never have prepared for. In the corner, huddled together under tattered blankets, were 7 figures, 1 woman and 6 children. A stranger's plea. Michael froze, his breath caught in his throat. The woman looked up, her face pale and bruised, eyes wide with fear. "Please, please don't call the police," she whispered. Her words trembled in the air, heavier than the cold itself. The children clung to her desperately, their faces thin and frightened. The youngest, a baby, let out a weak cry, muffled quickly by the eldest boy, no older than 13. Michael lowered his flashlight, his heart pounding. He had expected raccoons or strays, not this. Not a woman and 6 starving children hiding in his shed like fugitives. "Who are you?" Michael asked, his voice low but steady. The woman swallowed hard before speaking. "My name is Sarah. We had nowhere else to go." And then, slowly, she began to explain. Sarah's story. Sarah was a widow. Her husband, Daniel, had been a factory worker who died in an accident nearly a year ago. His death left her not just heartbroken, but destitute. Daniel's employer gave her little compensation, and with 6 mouths to feed, Sarah quickly found herself drowning in debt. She tried everything: cleaning houses, sewing clothes, working late shifts at diners. But with childcare impossible to afford, she had to drag her children everywhere she went. Employers saw them as a burden and turned her away. Shelters helped for a time, but they were always full, and some weren't safe. Nights on the street became common. The bruises on her face weren't only from hardship she had encountered. People who preyed on the vulnerable, and she had fought them off to protect her kids. That night, desperate for even a roof over their heads, they had stumbled upon Michael's shed and thought it was abandoned. Her voice broke as she whispered, "I didn't want to trespass. I just wanted my children to sleep in peace for one night." Michael stood silently, every word piercing him. He glanced at the children, the hollow cheeks, the thin jackets, the way their eyes darted between him and their mother. And then he felt a tug on his coat. Ethan, his 10-year-old son, had followed him outside. His little voice broke the silence. "Dad, can they stay with us? Please?" The choice that changed everything. Michael's throat tightened. He was already stretched thin, barely managing bills, food, and long hours at construction sites. Adding 6 children and their mother into the mix seemed impossible. But when he looked at Ethan, he saw something that shook him. His son's eyes were pleading. Not just with kindness, but with recognition. Ethan, too, had felt the sting of loss. He, too, knew what it was like to go to bed with grief as his only companion. Michael turned back to Sarah. "Come inside. All of you." Sarah's lips trembled as tears streamed down her face. The children followed hesitantly, shuffling into the warm farmhouse that would, unknowingly, become their new home. That night, Michael's life changed forever. The struggles of a new family. The first week was pure chaos. Michael had 1 bedroom for himself, 1 for Ethan, and a small guest room. With 8 new people, they had to improvise: sleeping bags on the floor, blankets spread across the living room. Food became the first crisis. Michael's fridge was nearly empty, and he had planned his groceries for just 2. Feeding 9 people was a different battle. That morning, he handed out the last of his bread and scrambled eggs, dividing them into small portions so everyone had something. The older kids ate last, letting the younger ones finish first. Michael noticed and felt his chest ache. Children shouldn't have to sacrifice their own hunger. Community reaction. Word spread quickly. A neighbor spotted Sarah's children in the yard and whispered, "Michael's taken in strays." At the grocery store, Michael noticed the stares. Some people shook their heads. Others muttered that it was irresponsible. One even asked him bluntly, "Why would you bring trouble into your house? They're not your problem." But for every critic, there was also kindness. An elderly woman left a basket of fruit on his porch. A farmer down the road dropped off extra milk and eggs. Slowly, compassion began to outweigh suspicion. New challenges. Money troubles. Michael worked construction, but with winter storms slowing projects, his hours were cut. He picked up night shifts where he could, often coming home exhausted. His hands grew blistered, his back sore, but he refused to complain. Sarah noticed. She begged him to let her work, but her leg, still swollen from an old injury, slowed her down. Instead, she started sewing clothes for neighbors and baking bread. The older kids helped sell them at the market, slowly earning a trickle of income. Emotional scars. The children carried invisible wounds. The eldest boy, Caleb, blamed himself for not being strong enough after his father's death. The middle children struggled with nightmares and trust. The youngest clung to Sarah constantly, terrified she would vanish too. Michael tried his best. He told them bedtime stories, helped with homework, and sat with them when tears came in the night. Sometimes, he failed, snapping from exhaustion or worrying about bills, but each time, he came back with an apology and a hug. A house of laughter again. Over time, something beautiful began to happen. The farmhouse, once quiet and heavy with grief, filled with life again. There was laughter at the dinner table. Pillow fights in the living room. Evenings where Sarah sang lullabies while Michael fixed broken toys. Ethan, once lonely, found brothers and sisters to share his days with. His smile returned, brighter than Michael had seen in years. For the first time since Anna's death, Michael felt like his house was more than just walls, it was a home. The breaking point. But just when things seemed steady, disaster struck. One night, while Michael was at work, a fire broke out in the kitchen. It wasn't large, but the smoke spread fast. Sarah managed to get the children out safely, but she inhaled too much smoke in the process. Michael rushed home to find her weak, coughing violently, surrounded by terrified children. The fire was contained, but Sarah's health deteriorated. Medical bills loomed over them, threatening to undo everything they had built. Michael nearly broke down that night. He sat alone on the porch, head in his hands, wondering if he had failed them all. But then, something unexpected happened. The town unites. The very people who once whispered behind Michael's back now rallied for him. Neighbors organized fundraisers, the church hosted a charity dinner, and volunteers helped repair the damaged kitchen. Food poured in, clothes were donated, and money was raised for Sarah's treatment. For the first time, the entire town stood together because one man's courage had inspired them all. The Festival of Hope. Months later, when the town held its annual winter festival, Michael brought Sarah and all the children. They stood together in the crowd, no longer strangers or outcasts, but a family. The mayor invited Michael on stage. "This man," he said, "taught us what it means to live with compassion. He didn't turn away when it was easy. He opened his home, his heart, and in doing so, reminded us all that kindness is what holds a community together."